please pause the video. Only a small percentage of you subscribe to my channel. Subscribing to my channel really helps me out. And while you're at it, smash that like button. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome back to Scale Model Kit Review Studio, and welcome back to another airbrush review. This time it is the GAAHLERI Mobius airbrush, and this is the 0.2 millimeter one. They also offer a 0.3 millimeter needle, and you can find all these airbrushes I'm going to talk about in my GAAHLERI store in the link below. Please use that, and there may even be some discounts contained within that store. So check it out. I did put a link down below. This is part of the premium series of airbrushes, and this is their top of the line, of course. I did review earlier the GAAHLERI-98D Ace series airbrush, and that's a great beginner's airbrush. If you're looking into airbrushing and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, but you want a good quality airbrush, that's the airbrush for you. And in my video I show you how to tear it down and put it back together and how to airbrush with it. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll put a link down below for that. The next airbrush I reviewed was the GAAHLERI-39 airbrush, and that's the advanced series type airbrush, and of course it's dual action. It's a fantastic airbrush, so if you want to step up to that, it has a finer needle with it, you can do that also. It's very affordable. And lastly, I reviewed the GAAHLERI-68 airbrush, and this is almost the same as the -39. However, it has a grip and trigger, and if it's easier for you to handle the airbrush with the grip and trigger, it's a fantastic airbrush also. And like I said, all three of those airbrushes I did review earlier, you can find the links down below. So let's go ahead and look at this airbrush here first, and open up the box. Right away when you turn it over, you do get very nice breakdown of the airbrush. So if you're running into problems putting it back together, this is the breakdown for that airbrush, and I'm going to show you that in this video anyway. We get a little welcome card, and GAAHLERI is available on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Twitter, and Reddit. They do give you a quick start guide on using the airbrush. It's very handy to have and something you definitely want to keep. And without further ado, let's look at this airbrush. Like always, GAAHLERI gives you extra seals, a couple of Teflon seals, and some rubber seals there. Plus the needle lube. This is lube you use very sparingly on your needle. And here's the airbrush itself. That is beautiful. Has some weight to it, first off, that I notice. It's heavier than most other airbrushes, but you know, it seems very well. I'm not going to do much with this because I want to tear it apart and inspect it. And of course we do get the color cup. It is a smaller color cup, but I'm sure you can purchase larger color cups separately, and that's that right there. I'll get that out and show it to you a little bit later. Let's go ahead and break this down and give a good inspection of the airbrush. Here's the airbrush, and you can see it's a beautiful looking airbrush. Reminds me of the Macron type airbrushes, but does have a little protector sleeve here you can take off. Does come with the quick disconnect for your air hose, which is very nice. And look at the trigger. Very nice. And I'm told that they're going to make a longer trigger, medium trigger, and a shorter trigger. And it does come with a MAC valve. This controls your airflow to the airbrush, and that makes it so you don't have to reach down and adjust your regulator on your airbrush. You can set your regulator for like 25 psi or 20 psi and then adjust your airflow right here. Okay, so that's very nice there too. A lot of your higher end airbrushes have that. And then the color cup, it just simply screws down in for easy cleaning and threaded. Like I said, you can probably get the larger color cup at Gaahleri, and then a cap to hold your paint in. So that makes it very nice. Also, there's an adjustment at the end of the airbrush that you can screw in and out to adjust your trigger throw. You know, how much paint you want to come out. So you can screw that in, and it will limit your trigger each time. Okay. So if you like to pulsate your flow of paint, and you want it to be the same all the time, then you can make that adjustment, and it will limit it. So you can actually lock it down, back it off, and make your adjustments. That's very nice there. Okay, let's take this apart. And this is something you want to do every time you get a new airbrush. You want to take it apart and inspect all the parts. You never know, the needle could be bent or jammed into the nozzle during shipment, and you definitely don't want that to happen. Okay, so this is where our needle is locked in on the valve. We'll just loosen that. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull that needle out and give it a good look here. Looks good. I'll put the needle aside just to keep it in safekeeping, and unscrew it here. And this is a nice improvement too. They did put some, made it more pronounced so it's easier to adjust and lock in. There we go. Pull the trigger out. And I'll go ahead and continue to disassemble this. I'll put the trigger aside, the main lever, adjustment knob, and spring, and the needle check nut. And we can't get this out yet. We have to loosen this up. Now you may have to loosen that up with a good set of pliers. I would recommend these Teflon tipped pliers. They make a smaller set. This is the larger one. This is the PH200. I'll put a link down below to these pliers. And loosen this up. And you'll note that the seal is on there. And this is our needle checking guide. Okay. Next, I'll go ahead and remove the quick disconnect and needle tip. This is the tip guard. It's just a solid guard, which is nice. And this locks the nozzle in place. This is kind of a floating nozzle setup. And note the seal. And here's the nozzle. Get a closer view of the nozzle. And there's the nozzle. And it's showing you the close-up of the nozzle using the needle. I'm being very careful with it. But you can see the Teflon seal right there. Very nice. And you can see how the needle goes through. And the nozzle cap. The nozzle cap, and the needle are all 0.2 millimeter, and they do not interchange with the 0.3 millimeter Mobius airbrush. Okay, so just remember that. And lastly, the valve body. which can be disassembled even more. If you're having problems, need to change the spring out, that could be done also. And you can see that, how that looks. Okay. And there you go. There's that disassembled. You can disassemble the inside with a long screwdriver, flat tip screwdriver. I'll go ahead and remove it so you see what it looks like. There we go. With the needle guide removed, you'll note that inside of the body is that Teflon seal, and that can be changed out very easily. You can take your needle, put it in the front from the back side, and push that seal out. Just like that. Now you'll very rarely have to do this, but if you're using this airbrush a lot, you may have to get to the point where you have to change that seal out. So that's how you do it. I'm going to put it back in real quick. We'll go ahead and put this back together. Now to put this back in there, you're simply just going to have to drop it in from the top and line up the threads. Take your screwdriver. We used to call this 7-level screwdriver in the Air Force. And we're going to screw it back down. And you just want it to be not tight, just like that. Okay, it wasn't tight in the first place, so it's just not tight and not loose. Just write it right there on it. Okay, and I'll go ahead and put in the MAC valve, or the air valve as we call it. Just leave that a little loose. And your valve body next. Note that you have the seal. Both of these had seals on them. There we go. And I'll snug that down here in a little bit. Doesn't need to be real tight. Next, I'll put in the needle chucking guide, and you want to have the thin top piece on top going out where the trigger comes out here. So we'll put that in just like that. Next, the spring case gets screwed in, and we want to put the longer shaft here into the airbrush. Snug that down. Good there. And this I'm gonna snug it down a little bit with my pliers. Okay, should be good. I'm gonna put my trigger in next, and I want to make sure that it's in front of the chucking guide. Just like that. And I'm going to hold it down. Put my spring in next. And the main lever adjustment knob goes over the spring. I'm going to screw that all the way down. Perfect. Now, put the needle in next. Here's our needle, and a lot of people will put it in from the back. I would not recommend that because you could easily bend the tip of the needle. So we want to go in from the front. This way we protect the tip. Push it all the way back. Okay, I'm going to pull it back until it's all the way inside the body a little bit. Not too far, it's just right there out of the way. Now I can let go of my trigger. I can put the needle chucking nut on. Leave it loose. Leave it loose a little bit, just like that. That's what that looks like so far. Next, bring over our nozzle, 2.2 millimeter nozzle, along with the nozzle cap, which is also 2 millimeter. It's floating. There we go. Make sure we have our seal on here, and make sure the needle is out of the way, and we'll screw that down. Good there. And the air cap. A lot of people airbrush without the air cap, so it doesn't really need to be there, but it is nice. It's a nice one. I like it. Okay, now we can go ahead and push our needle forward until it stops, and don't push it too hard. Just push it until it stops. Right there. That's good. And then I'll lock it down. And then we can check it out. Put on quick disconnect. I can go ahead and kind of just tighten things down a little bit here, make them snug there and there. It's good there. And lastly, we put our handle on, and we don't want it too tight. There's a seal there. That should be good enough. And perfect. Color cup next. Make sure the seal is in there. Screw that down. And the cap. There you go. Ready to airbrush. That would be next. I'll go ahead and demonstrate how this airbrush works. I'll go ahead and demonstrate how this works, and this would be my first time using this. I am told by Jerry over at Just Paint It that it works fabulous. He actually painted his figure that he just produced and came out with from the movie The Warriors, and I'll put links down below for his how-to videos on building up and painting that sculpture. It's fantastic. But he used this airbrush exclusively for that, and he's very happy with it. We'll go ahead and mix the paint. I'll show you how I mix my paint. I'm going to use some Tamiya X7, which is a matte red, and I've already shaken it up. And some lacquer thinner. And I use the lacquer thinner because it flashes off faster, and it really works great with the acrylic paint here. You can use the regular Tamiya thinner, but I like the lacquer thinner. So I'll put a little bit in here. That's good there. And my mixture will be 1.5 to 1. And that should be just right. Mix it. And you want it to have consistency of milk or even 1% milk, and that's what that looks like. We'll go ahead and pour this in the airbrush and we'll get started. Hook up my hose. Okay, I'm going to turn on my compressor so you're going to have a little bit of noise here. Exhaust fan is coming on also. When I have my new studio going, I'll have it all separated so it won't be a problem for noise. Okay. Pour in paint. And the cap is on. Just going to make some adjustments to the MAC valve. And my other MAC valve is open all the way down below. It's the one I normally use. But also going to make some adjustments to this MAC valve. I'm backing it off. Back off all the way. And just to get the paint flowing here. And right now I'm just doing air, which is good, nothing's coming out. And back off on the needle a little bit on the trigger. Here we go. Wow, right away, looks great. Okay. And see how that looks. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to crank it in and back it out just a little bit. Okay, so if you want a splatter effect, you can get a splatter effect with that. Nice. See if I can get it to go very fine. Okay, no air pressure. Okay, and take this cap off. See how it does without the cap. So I do get a little blow by in the very beginning. If I spray, and I just engage the needle, push down just for air only, and that's good. Perfect. And just a little bit of an adjustment there. So you can see how fine I can get this to go. Very pleased. We'll give us some coverage here. Good. So I'm very pleased with that. And I put the cap back on. Good. Fantastic. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. This was a thorough review and my first impression for this airbrush, the GAAHLERI Premium Mobius 0.2mm dual action airbrush. You can get this for yourself in my GAAHLERI store. I put a link down below. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel and smash the like button, everybody. Happy modeling.